We're having a conversation on Katiba 2010.
Yeah.
And you've quite literally had an experience of all the constitutions that Kenya has ever had from the colonial period. You mentioned that you grew up in the colonial period, and probably there was a constitution at that time. Now, you also lived through the independence and Kenyatta, the first government, this Kenyatta's government, and there was also a constitution. You've lived through Moi's constitution. You're now. You have lived through Kibaki, and now you are a constitution 2010. You've been having a conversation on the evolution of the constitution in this country, and also the absorption forthwith, because we realize that the constitution can be there like food, but people don't have the appetite for it, you know. And we've been looking at what has changed constitutionally since we birthed this country in terms of we got our own democracy, we became a republic. You've had a chance to grow through all the constitutions. Would you mind giving us a footprint of the constitutional journey from colonial time to where we are today at Constitution 2010?
Yeah. Okay, so the colonial period didn't have a constitution. You know that Britain never had a constitution. So you had the kind of what you might call rule by law. It's not the rule of law at all, because it was colonial violence, colonial theft, colonial rule that was brutal, and that's why the Mau Mau challenged it. The same colonial rule that stole lands and whatnot, as I've said. But the constitution debate started in the 50s when the British decided to leave to give us independence. And it was not just us, it was where they had colonies. You look at that history, it starts with the Second World War. Britain, during that war, Britain is totally weakened. Europe is bombed, and you see the emergence of the American Empire after the Second World War. And then on the other side, you have the Soviet Empire also emerging out of. And so the discussion for independence of colonies, India and Pakistan is 47, right? And Sudan 56, Ghana 57, and then
progressively.
Yes. So that was the era of the colonial constitution, making. And the British, who didn't have a constitution, followed the Americans and others in terms of having a social contract where, issues of rights and so forth will be captured in that constitution as a supreme law. And that's when you had this Lancaster House conferences. In the case of Kenya, there were 3. And there were debates about Majimbo, about everything else. And what happened was we got a constitution that had devolution all right. The Kanu government, led by Jomo Kenyatta, did not like that constitution. And Githu Muigai's PhD thesis is about how that constitution was dismembered to pave way for imperial presidency, to abolish political parties, to do all manner of things, up to the so-called second liberation, which was basically saying that Kenya needed to be a multi-party democracy. Okay? And that one is the one that started the second
revolution.
Yeah, in terms of constitution making. Because from 63 to 91, the independence constitution had been changed completely through amendments. And all we knew was that there was an imperial presidency, and that the institutions were weak, the judiciary was weak, the elections themselves, You know, I've talked about Mololongo in 1988. They didn't believe in the secret ballot anymore. So when a multi-party system happens, that's when you then start getting these discussions about a new constitution. Because the opposition parties wanted freedom of movement, speech, assembly. And that's when, you know, the civil society, us, Kenya Human Rights Commission and so forth, actually spearheaded that movement. And 1994, we had a model constitution that people started debating. And then the great mass action of 1997, that changed some of the oppressive statutes, you know, through the IPPG. And then 98, the constitution for comprehensive, constitution making for comprehensive reforms started. And that's the one that went on until we got the 2010 constitution. But as I've said, the reason for constitution making was very, very clear. Kenyans did not want a status quo that we had, which was colonial and post-colonial, the way the state operated, the issues of corruption. That's why Chapter 6 is about leadership and integrity. You go to Article 91, it tells you how to organize politics, right? You cannot organize politics of division in this country, but they still continue. So what you are seeing today is again forces that are against that progressive constitution coming together through the BBI and other forces to basically say this constitution doesn't work. Yet they haven't implemented it. And the other forces are saying no, you know, implement first. And the young people are saying, no, in fact, we should capture power so that we implement the constitution and ourselves and decide whether it needs change. So it's a struggle. When you look at it, oppression, resistance, oppression, resistance, and that is the trajectory that you basically see, and the constitution being used as a tool that can solve or can bring a consensus or a ceasefire between the opposing forces.
All right.
Yeah.